city services. And we also do education outreach, which is what this day is about. This panel is going to be talking about fair housing for landlords and property managers to get an idea of, what are some of the ways that we can protect ourselves and our tenants. So I'll turn it over to our panel to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Tracy Krywicki. I am a property manager with Berkshire Hathaway Property Management Company. I also have a business that does training, various topics, fair housing being one of the areas that I teach. I've been involved in multifamily and property management for about 30 years.
And my name is Kyle Webster. I am the Vice President of Housing and General Counsel for Action Housing. Action Housing is the largest and oldest affordable housing nonprofit in Pennsylvania. We currently directly manage about 1,500 units of affordable housing around the region. In addition to having an ownership interest in a few thousand more. Also, I'm a senior leader who is over top of the property management division of our agency.
Very good. And then I'll start off with sort of a little bit of context about all of these laws that we have sitting on top of one another. So obviously, we're here at the end of Fair Housing Month, where we celebrate the passage of the Fair Housing Act, but we also have state and local laws that relate to fair housing. So we have the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, we have Allegheny County Code, and we have Pittsburgh City Code, which is what obviously the commission specifically enforces along with the Fair Housing Act. So thinking about all of these laws sitting on top of each other, how would you say that fair housing laws play, or what role would you say fair housing laws play in your everyday work? And either.
You want to start?
I'm happy to start.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm an attorney in the housing space. Fair housing obviously plays a very prominent role in my day-to-day decisions and work. We build buildings that is intended to become affordable housing. In addition to us managing properties that are intended to maintain as affordable housing. And the decisions we make in regards to how the building looks, how the building interacts with the community, how a tenant interacts with the building, et cetera, are really important decisions being made at every step of the process from beginning of development through place and service and then beyond in the ongoing asset management stage. I am a cis white man who works in downtown. I was going to say I normally wear a suit. I'm not wearing a suit today, which is funny, but I'm a lawyer. I have my lived experience and I have the lens through which I see the work that I do. Fair housing and the fair housing laws that impact are an amazing device that force me to influence my work with other lenses that would not naturally be a part of how I just see it. It requires me to fact check myself, to check the experience that people are having with the different things that we are signing off on, that we are creating. In addition to housing, we also create homeless shelters, which fair housing laws also impact that as an accommodation. And we, want to ensure that we are forcing ourselves to use that lens to ensure that all individuals have the equal opportunity to access our housing within reasonable means and challenge ourselves to really view the word reasonable as a flexible term that opens up more doors for people than it closes. Additionally, in my personal side of the office, not just the overarching work we do, when there is a reasonable accommodation request that comes in, I am the one who processes those, and I'm the one who makes the determinations on those. And I'm also implementing policy in response to those to ensure that we can minimize the need for reasonable accommodation requests moving forward, if it's at all possible.
Very cool.
So as I said in my introduction, it's actually almost 30 years in property management, but that said, I started my career with a company in North Carolina that was very adamant and passionate about fair housing education. So from the time I started working in this industry, it was apparent to me the policies and rules that we needed to follow, what the laws were. I had continual training. And I myself developed a passion for it as I spent more time in the industry. Again, that wasn't here in Pennsylvania, but I think it's the same everywhere. Noticing so many people not practicing fair housing, I guess you can say. And things that were happening to people I knew and to my friends and stories. And so as I developed my career in the industry, I educated myself. I attended a lot of seminars and education and decided when I did start my training business that that was going to be a topic that I wanted to offer and enjoy the continuing education of it. So thankful that there are so many management companies who take it seriously, who have their people trained yearly, at least every 5 years, who call me about questions, and still many, unfortunately, that don't. So that being said, and the fact that I do provide education, it's a very big part of my everyday life. I have a lot of alerts set up for changes and news stories and things like that. As a property manager, I am touring prospective residents. I am making an offer for people to rent. I manage property where people live side by side, where they may need an accommodation or modification prior to move in. Something may happen while they're living in the home or apartment where they may need something. So it's the same. It's very much a part of my everyday work and everyday life.
Yeah, and so when we think about the fair housing laws, they come with these protected classes. We have 7 federally. We'll see if I can remember without looking: race, color, religion, national origin, disability, sex, forgetting one, familial status. Familial status. So we have those 7, but then as we go into local laws, we start to expand and we have even more. For example, City of Pittsburgh has survivors of domestic violence. We have preferred language. We talked last week about how the state actually has age, which is unusual for fair housing law, but the state does have an age protection in fair housing. So thinking about all of these different identity characteristics, how would you say that you make your everyday work and your practice accessible to the diversity of our region?
I put some answers in my phone.
Yeah.
So, I think one of the things that's very important as a property management company, and we do this with Berkshire Hathaway Property Management, is making sure that you're advertising your properties in a variety of resources, a variety of parts of town, to a variety of different members of a variety of protected classes. We're also fortunate enough in our company that we have some HUD properties available. We work with hundreds of different owners. So we have availability of a variety of price ranges, a variety of different types of programs. If I don't have something that's available for somebody, I can pass them along to somebody who can help them. I always say when I teach fair housing classes, I just really don't like the answer no. There's always something that you can do to help someone, somewhere that you can send people. So, I mean, we have a very open door policy in our company as far as, wanting to try to help everybody who makes that phone call or walks through the front door. And in most capacities, we have something that can help. And if not, we work to try to find something for them.
I think one of the most important things that we do is ensuring that, when it comes to fair housing, really the folks who control the experience that diverse populations have with our company, with our housing, is our staff. And I, as a senior leader of the organization, can have all of the philosophies and beliefs I have. And if those have not also been instilled in the staff, and the staff have not been adequately trained, it doesn't really mean much. So our staff that are front lines in the housing side of things and property management undergo yearly fair housing trainings. And we do refreshers just to ensure that they have the necessary tools and understanding to be able to really enforce those rules and ensure that those experiences are being as equitably applied across the folks that are trying to access and currently living in our housing. Additionally, we really do a lot to missionally connect it and view that fair housing is not just a law, it is a key part of our mission as a nonprofit organization. And as such, we try really hard to ensure that. Yeah, please.
Be up here for a while.
For a little bit.
Okay. Enjoy.
Thank you. Absolutely. So yeah, so training is a key piece. And other things that we also do, again, is just try to be responsive, try to be proactive, asking tenants what it is that they need, ensuring that we're doing what we can to meet those needs. And also, I think being humble in the sense that sometimes people in this space can assume that they understand fair housing and how it applies to an individual tenant's needs better than that individual tenant does. And I think it's really important to value each individual tenant's experience and see what we can do to best meet that experience, regardless of what experiences we've had with similar tenants in the past, and not allowing ourselves to become biased towards what needs there may be.
Yeah, makes sense to me. So let's talk for no. Let's talk for a second about discrimination on the basis of disability, and there are really kind of like two main categories of discrimination on the basis of disability. There are sort of differences in treatment, or in some cases, discriminatory advertisement sort of falls in that same area. And then we have denial of reasonable accommodations, denial of reasonable modifications. So we're looking at two sort of big categories. And then looking at, the second part, denial of reasonable accommodations or modifications, how do you make sure that you're doing your due diligence on reasonable accommodations? What would you say your process is for someone requesting a reasonable accommodation?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I never ever make any judgment on the legitimacy of a tenant's ability. I always assume that their reported disability is valid, and that it is my job to rather focus on the reasonableness of the request. And I think that's a really important thing. I often will see property management companies reject a person's disability, which to me is rejecting their lived experience, and that is not something that we are qualified to do. So I always assume the legitimacy, and that's where I start. I start with knowing that this is true and this is their experience and these are their needs. Is what they're asking me reasonable? And in looking at reasonableness, I look at the cost, the impact on other tenants, and the sustainability. And really, it's those three things that we break down. More often than not, two may be good and one's not, and the reasonableness fails because that one's not. If we have and it's terrible because everything that's fresh in my mind are recent ones that I absolutely cannot talk about. But I think there are ways that we need to be creative where I also, what the individual has asked for, I can recognize, okay, they need to be accommodated in this way. Here's what they're asking for, but is there a way for us to get to that end that is reasonable, that is not exactly what they're asking for? Sometimes they need to be able to achieve this thing, and that thing may have multiple paths. And one of them may be reasonable. And if one of them is reasonable, we're going to do that. And that's led to a lot of kind of creative processes, but that's the basic process. And then before if I am going to approve a reasonable accommodation request, I just approve it, and we move forward and we implement it. If I'm going to deny one, I always seek out a second opinion because I want to make sure that there is not an underlying bias or misperception that I have that is going to cause harm to this tenant, because anytime you deny it, it is running the risk of causing harm. So I want to make sure that there is a second set of eyes on that. And then the second set of eyes, sometimes I will reverse the opinion based on that. Other times, it will just more or less ratify that while we want to, meet the needs of this person in this particular situation, unfortunately, it is not reasonable.
Can I ask a question? We were chatting before the session and you said something that I thought was very interesting. Maybe you would expound upon, because I think that it could be interesting to other people as well, that the accommodations that you're being asked to meet and the ability to do that and get a meeting of the mind since COVID has been a lot different.
Mhm.
How is that?
I think one of the most unique things that's happened is we've seen a rise in reasonable accommodations. I don't know if that's industry wide. You would know better than I assume that it is, because we have seen a rise in requests since COVID. What we've seen uniquely in a way that we've never seen before is the contradiction where, I told you about the three areas. One was impact on other tenants, where literally two tenants in the same building will have reasonable accommodation requests. that conflict. And so we cannot implement one without directly denying, and not just denying, but impacting the other. An example of this would be a tenant who asks us to lower the light ratio in the hallways because it causes substantial issues with their headaches, with seizuring, etc. And then another tenant in the same building is saying, I need you to increase the light because I'm having vision issues and it's become a tripping hazard for me because I can't comfortably get down the stairs because I cannot physically see. And that sort of contradiction, which prior to COVID, we really rarely interacted with, and now we are seeing that far more frequently, which does create a higher level of need for innovation and creativity on our part, because both of those tenants have the right to thrive in their housing. And obviously their ability to thrive in their housing is at direct conflict and needing to figure out what is the best outcome to meet both of their needs. So that's kind of, I think, what's happened is we've seen a lot more different types, but also unfortunately a lot more conflicting types of accommodation.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
So my space where I work is definitely a little more, not just a little, it's a lot more conventional type housing. So again, like I said before, it's not that I mean that we never come to a no, but I just always kind of try to come to the place of making a meeting of the minds and saying yes. So it's really important, especially in a conventional space. We may see some things that you see more on a daily basis and accommodations and things people are asking for that we've never seen before. So it could be very easy for someone in the conventional side of multifamily to kind of be like, what? No, we can't, but we can't do that, right? Where it's being done. It's been done someplace before. So just making sure that you don't respond in a way that's a no, and you let that person know that you care about what the changes are that they need so that they can live well in their space also. And then having the benefit of having 26 other property managers, the years of experience that we have in our industry, getting another opinion. Somebody may have seen this, had this request, here's how they handle it, do some investigating to figure out how you can come to a place where you can make that offer and take care of that accommodation.
Yeah.
I have one other thing I want to add to your question about COVID. The other thing, and I think this is important, we have seen a massive increase in reasonable accommodation requests on the basis of mental health and mental ability level since COVID, which I do not think personally, this is my opinion, I don't think it's because there is suddenly this spike in need. I think that there's become a normalization of acknowledging the need and of asking for the assistance that you need, which I personally think is beautiful and is a great thing, and is also forcing us as housing developers and housing that is truly not just really challenged us at times, but has also really helped us create housing that really does allow those tenants to thrive.
And I have the hopes also, totally in agreement, I have the hopes also that some of maybe the normalization of, I feel like we all kind of have something, right? So I've had times in my life where I've had extreme anxiety or had depression or whatever, and people can be a little more open about it, is allowing some landlords and some people who maybe haven't previously had an understanding that there